Hello, my name is Morgan McLintic. I work for Lewis PR. It's a global digital communications firm. Right now, we're going to talk about building a global brand in the digital era. And this is particularly important as product life cycles condense, and so companies need to have their go-to-market needs to be faster as news becomes more global, and so even domestic brands address a global audience, and as channels proliferate, and so doing it becomes even more complex. So really building a global brand is a sort of irresistible prize locked inside a sort of Pandora's box of complexity, and we're going to look at how we do that today. You know, we've got to think about, in a very practical terms, you know, how do you set a global strategy? How do you build the budget? How do you find those brilliant ideas that are going to connect with your audiences? How do you then implement that and then and measure it? And today I'm fortunate to be joined with 4 people who are really doing this on a day-to-day basis. And so what I'm hoping to get is some real practical advice that we can all use back in our programs. So I'd like them all to introduce themselves. So Emma, why don't you go first? Who are you?
Sure, thank you. I'm Emma Keates. I'm Group PR Manager for a global software company called Unit 4. We are in 26 countries, around 470 million euro company with 4,000 employees. And we manage most of our marketing centrally, and then a lot's done locally in the countries too.
The shy and retiring Mr. Stephen Forshaw. Who are you?
I'm just tweeting your picture introducing us. So, yes, Stephen Forshaw. I'm Head of Corporate Affairs for Temasek, which is the Singapore government's investment corporation. We're a quiet but very large global investor. And prior to that, I've spent time in Microsoft and Singapore Airlines as regional head of corporate affairs in Asia, and with Singapore Airlines as global head of public affairs.
Yeah, indeed. Andrea, who are you?
Hello, my name is Andrea Fuller, and I am the Global Corporate Communications Director at Recommind. And Recommind is a global hypergrowth big data company. So you've probably read a lot about big data in the last couple of years. Well, you're looking at one of those people in the flesh. We're about $100 million in revenues and largely self-financed. So we have a pretty unique story in Silicon Valley.
And Stéphanie, who are you?
Hello, my name is Stéphanie Saissay. I come from Paris. I'm the head of communication for Adobe for Southern and Western Europe. And I've been with Adobe for 9 years now. Before that, I used to work as the IT director in a PR agency.
So we have people from different continents, different sizes of company. So I'm imagining they're going to be doing things in different ways. I will just say, I don't know where to press this. Okay. All right. Here we are. So my firm is exploring this topic in a paper that we're launching today, so you'd be welcome to pick one of those up at the back. But let's set the scene. Emma, maybe I start with you. What are the challenges that you see for global brands in the current environment, and how is that sort of changing compared to a few years ago?
Sure, I mean, I think it's changed hugely. Obviously, social media's had a huge impact and really gives a new opportunity for brands to go global fairly quickly, with much less infrastructure, I would say. One of the issues that we have as a global company is ensuring consistency of the brand right around the group, which is why we brought everything into a central hub, if you like. So our group marketing department, which I'm part of, heading up the PR team, is done from the UK, and we have a team of creatives who look after all the brand imagery, videos, obviously PR, that kind of thing, to ensure that consistency. And we act as a sort of shared services centre for all the countries, and they have local marketing teams too. And we think it works quite well, but even then, ensuring or asking them very politely to do what we want can be a huge issue still, so we're still working on that.
What about you, Stephen?
3 things: relevance, immediacy and I think consistency. Maintaining a degree of relevance to a global audience is very difficult because everyone's looking for different things, even if it's down to the basics like language and websites and cultural nuances. You've also got to be, I think, to take the point from my learned colleague on my right, that it's really about consistency. It's about telling people in the field that sometimes you've got to do it our way, and I think importantly is maintaining that degree of relevance to audience. I think we just heard some great stories from the last panel about localization. How do you balance the need to be local with this required consistency being driven from head office?
Yeah, and I want to come back to that sort of topic of structure. Andrea, what about in a sort of fast-growing, hyper-growth company? Everything is changing very quickly. What are the challenges that you see from that?
That's right. Our key challenge and our key opportunity is hypergrowth. Our company has grown 100% in 2011, 50% in 2012, and so dealing with that kind of growth is exhilarating, exhausting, frustrating, and critical. And so working at Recommind has been in the past like working in the Wild West. Like anything goes, get it done. Execution is really the only thing that counts, and execute in any way possible. So we're stepping back. We are now adults. We've gone through our adolescence and starting to centralize. And so going through some of what you were talking about earlier, it's critical to centralize communications and PR in order to just maintain consistency.
And how are you dealing with just to drive in on that, the sort of that shift then, the politics involved in getting people to?
It's bloody. It is bloody. Well, it's all about the money, and so pulling the money into a central location and working with the regional offices and giving budget from the central location, that's how we're doing it. And we tried it lots of different ways, but centralizing the budget seems to be the thing that's worked.
And Stéphanie, you're working with a global brand. Everybody knows that. That everybody knows, I imagine. What are the challenges that you see for a company that's very established like that's trying to sort of reinvent itself in many ways?
I think that today the biggest challenge for us is to find the right balance between global and local. We used to believe that we need to think global and act local, and I think it's not relevant anymore because everything is global. And even what you create locally can become global. So you need to take that into consideration and to move your strategies accordingly. The trend is to decrease the resources. So when you have that trend, you have a tendency to do more things globally, but you need to keep at the local level enough intelligence and strategy, because that's many times where you make the big difference. Engaging with your communities and talking to your local audience. And also in terms of creativity, some creativity can come from local. Maybe we can show the videos. We have an example of one of those videos have been made locally by a small teams in the Nordics country for very minimal budget. And they had 17 million views on YouTube. And the other one is a global campaign, which has been also successful with something like 700,000 views, but very global campaign branded by Adobe. So we can see that this local campaign became more global than the other one.
Brilliant. So one of them's at 2.5 minutes, so we're going to slightly close it, cut that one off halfway through, but you'll see the general trend. So maybe we can show the first of those videos now.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for coming. My name is John. Any questions before we start? Good. How does your company currently measure results in digital marketing?
Well, we look at the bigger picture and try to see what kind of ripple effect we go for the key influencers who are, At the end of the day, we want to create a halo effect around our brand recognition.
We try to fine-tune engagements to get...
Working on getting a real 360-degree view of the customer to
cross-segment synergies. Likes?
closed-loop marketing.
Search,
Classification of our brand.
SEO,
Click-through rates?
Just make it go viral.
Okay, so we got two examples of content there. One produced locally. They're both very good.
In this
I think
case,
I would
the
have got properly
ROI was much
electrocuted.
better. The ROI was much better for the local one. In
For the
this
second
case.
one.
Yes.
You just used that buzzword. Is your head going?
Yeah, I know. I would have got properly electrocuted if that one, if that had been the case. So, so that's really good. Let's just talk about then ideas. Go down into that level. How do you all run global teams, or you have run global teams? How do you spot ideas that are good at a local level, and then sort of propel that up into the global thing that you can then reuse it? I mean, isn't that what we all want to do, is to sort of have a team of people where anyone can have a brilliant idea, no one's got a monopoly on that. Yeah. But what's the process of that?
I think one of the great problems with in-house functions these days is that we've all become so dependent on outsourcing the ideas creation to the agency. And with all due respect to the agency folks in the room, that's really dangerous for in-house practitioners. One of the things that I always did at Singapore Airlines was told my team, I want the ideas to come from us, and we can certainly use the agencies at the right time, but I want our people thinking about creative ideas with next to no budget. So the whole idea here is that you can't outsource the ideas creation because you don't have the money to say, let's get the agency to do it. We were talking earlier, one of the projects that I led at Singapore Airlines was the first flight of the A380. I think most people here would fall off their chairs if they knew just how little we spent on PR on that. The objective was to quite seriously run a global PR campaign for less than 1/10 of a full-page ad in one of the international dailies, and we succeeded.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Andrea, how do you spot good ideas from your teams?
Our approach is absolutely the opposite.
That's great.
We are a big data company, so we have no creativity internally. There's no creativity has left the building. So we have to, we rely on our agency to be much more creative than we ever could be. And we are consolidating to use one agency. And so I think they are incredibly creative across the globe.
Which agency would that be?
Let's guess.
Lewis. They're incredibly creative. We rely on them because we're growing too fast and way too left-brained to just kind of just pull up ideas that might work. And we're relying on them to use some of the synergy with their other clients as well in other industries that are much more creative than we are. So our approach is quite the opposite.
Well, we have a similar problem in that we're a software company and we've been doing it for a long time. And I do think we lack creativity in a lot of areas. What we're trying to do, we've built really good relationships with the marketing teams in the countries, and we do have regular get-togethers and global meetings where we try and share ideas as much as possible, and we really encourage them to almost compete with each other to showcase what they have been doing, and then we can either roll that up and use it as a global campaign, or it might stay local. But we're now more than ever, we're competing with these cloud software players who have just been around for a couple of years, and literally they've just started in this sort of cool software business, and so they're quite funky by nature and they're very creative in terms of their branding, and we're finding that it's a difficult balance between trying to do something similar but without looking like a parent who's going to embarrass their child.
That's right. Granddad in flair.
So that's one of our current challenges.
So how are you, well, specifically then, so, as a more traditional company, you know where you need to go, you've obviously got some internal stakeholders you've got to convince. How are you getting them through? Let's take in the area of social, let's just do it. How are you addressing that particular challenge?
Sure, we're doing more than ever in social, and it's replaced so much of our marketing activity. And we're finding the only way to deal with it is centrally, and to really give parameters and frameworks to the countries within which they can work. And we're finding that actually without that help, they probably wouldn't be doing anything. When we first started out, we were finding Facebook accounts all over the place, and the brand was just hideous, and people were using the Aggresso bull, which we killed off about 3 years ago. And
when you rebranded, right?
Yeah, actually it was longer than that. So it's just getting that consistency, and we're being really strict in terms of, each country has a company account on Twitter, for example. We don't have product accounts. They're marketed through hashtags. Any other accounts we have are sector specific. So we're really strict about how these are done, and we're actually setting up for blogs, for example, we have a template that we provide to the countries, and they have to work with that.
I'm going to come to the audience pretty early on, because I think actually audience questions are great for panels. But Stéphanie, we just started talking about structure there for social media, right? Adobe is a big brand. I'm sure there are lots of advocates for that brand, both from users and within the company. How do you, and you run the sort of European side of it, but how do you structure the social media side of it? Do you push it out to the countries and they can just run their own programs? At what point do they sort of get their wings to do it themselves, if at all?
We are very social at Adobe. We have been investing in social for a number of years now because it's very close to what we are as a company. Between creativity and web marketing. And as we do 75% of our marketing online, social play a big role into that at every level of the marketing funnel. So we have a global team in the US that is focused on social media only, something like 15 people that are really product line by product line, setting the strategy, defining the tone and the key investment in the channels. And then at the MEA level, we have also a layer of social responsibility to gather content, because content is key for social. Right. And we can see that with those videos, but this is true in every area, so the content is really key. First, the content, I would say, and secondly, your ability to engage with your audience. You can't push content and never answer. And this engagement is at the local level. So the content, the strategy is defined globally, and then at the local level, we have internal people, we have community manager in our agencies that on a day-to-day basis take the content that is provided by corporate or EMEA, add the local content, and engage and monitor the channels.
Interesting. So
The largest, just one thing,
Yeah.
very important, the largest area of investment today for social is measurement.
right.
We have the luck to have our own tools, so we spend a lot of time trying to using them appropriately because we have the big data issue like everybody. So we can measure on a global basis with the same KPIs. So
Right. Okay. I want to come back to measurement, but you mentioned content, and we've got people from the Asia Pacific region, from Europe, from the US here. What types of content are working for you, and how is that? Where are you putting your investment in specific types of content? Are there any changes there or conflicts, Stephen? I don't know.
I think it really is coming down to a conversation about the type of content that works. So I work in an investment company. There's a lot of interest in transactions that we're doing. Are we buying this company? Are we selling this company? And actually, for various reasons, I can't talk about those because there are listing rules and market sensitivities, and the mere mention of what our interest in a certain company might be can actually move the share price. So we have to be really careful about that. So where I'm finding that we're shifting our content is to more of telling the Temasek story. Who are we? Why do we do the things we do? And sort of putting a bit more humanity behind the brand. At the moment, we're just known as a big money house. And I think we need to, progressively shift that conversation to what are the objectives that we have in investing? What are we looking for in the companies that we're investing in? And in doing so, we actually send a signal to the market that if you're a good company out there, we'd like to talk to you. Please come and talk to us about what your ideas are for generating growth. And so, we're looking at the content is really going to be made to fit that ultimate objective of identifying the next generation of companies that are going to be fantastic investment opportunities.
And what about? We talked around a panel in this session last time about sort of brand journalism. Are brands creating their own stories or that kind of thing? That kind of content, hiring reporters themselves. Are any of your companies experimenting with that? Has that accelerated over the last year? What do we think about that topic? Stephanie,
we have
you're
that.
nodding.
We have a website which is called cmo.com.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is to talk to marketers about marketing. And this is a very big investment for the company because you have several journalists working full-time on that area. I think today you can find 10,000 articles online. So this is really a media. The reason why we are doing that is that there is no media, global media, that can address all our targets in marketing. So we created it ourselves. And this is collaborative and social. You can, as a market expert, submit an article on digital marketing, on social, or whatever you like. And if it fits the criteria, this will be posted on the website.
Interesting. So we got some more time, but I've got a lot of questions, but I would really want to ask whether any of the audience have got questions that I'd like. I think that's much more engaging. So has anybody got a question that they would like to ask these brand marketers? I think it's Richard. I can hardly see, but looks like Richard.
I'm hiding in the back. Thanks very much indeed. I love the honesty about creativity and big data. I'm really interested in how you use another one of the buzzwords, the sort of data and analytics pieces to plan and sort of implement and then evaluate the campaigns on a global basis. Do you use sort of consistent data sources, consistent feedback loops? How do you go about doing that? Because I can imagine that could get incredibly complicated.
I think his head just went zzz a few times.
Yeah.
Consistent data source.
For us at Adobe, we have teams now that are new, that do that all day long and that provide to marketing data to adapt how marketing campaigns. So we track the customer journey wherever they are, wherever they come from, and we adapt our campaigns accordingly. So we have quite a bench of people doing that, and it's really key today for us to prove to the sales part of the company and to the business unit that their investment in marketing are worth.
Right.
So our CEO recently said marketing is the new finance because of that, because now we can show the ROI of what we do and we can stop certain investments to switch to other, thanks to those guys who crunch data every day.
I mean, Adobe's had the opportunity to buy or develop its own system. What about a more emerging brand like Recommind? How are you measuring the performance of marketing or marcoms anyway?
Since we are not very creative, we're definitely analytical. We measure everything, probably much too much. It's almost analysis paralysis in our company. And so, PR, we have our own KPIs, but those KPIs fold into the funnel for lead generation. And so in our company, PR is really important. Our CEO believes in it. It's what helped him bootstrap his business. And so we put a sizable investment in it. And globally, we've just now finished, with Lewis's help, determining what our global KPIs are and tracking them very vigorously. So the measurement is seriously important for us.
Any further comments on measurement?
No, I mean, I manage our group PR, so from a marketing measurement point of view, I actually don't get heavily involved in that. But I know we're doing more and more around analytics to do with SEO. And
Because it's pushing all the way through that.
yeah, all of that good stuff.
Thank you, Richard. Who else has got questions about how they run it?
There's a comment that just came through on Twitter, actually, if I can just address that. And I think it goes back to the point I was making about your own people in-house having to get involved in creating the opportunities. So I think the comment here is that, yes, a willingness to get their hands dirty. No one knows a product better than the insider or a customer. And I think there's a great validity there, that it's very important for us as insiders to often be putting ourselves in the shoes of the customer. And one of the I think the core attributes of an in-house PR practitioner, I think, is that we are not just the voice of the organisation to the outside world. We actually need to be the voice of the outside world to the inside of the organisation as well. It's a two-way process, and I think that's where it's really important for people in the business, in the communication side, to roll their sleeves up, get right into it, and understand the business, in a lot of detail. That's the advantage I think an in-house person has over an agency person. I think the complementary advantage that an agency brings is the breadth of experience across multiple clients.
Right.
So what's worked for a technology client could work for my business that I don't have any visibility on. And I think the most successful teams in the partnerships with their agencies will complement the strength of the in-house team with that very broad view that an agency can bring, that sort of helps you see new ideas and new processes.
So how are you going? So understanding the audience is super important then, and particularly if you're the in-house person, you have perhaps you're a bit closer to the audiences. How do you gather the information about your audiences and identify them, and then parlay that into the messaging? Is there a particular best practice there?
Well, in the old days, you did these involved surveys, and it took months to do, and everybody had to buy in. And we do some of that still, but more and more. Share of voice, mentions in social media. Social media is becoming really important in order to find out real time what resonates with customers. And we have customers that won't talk at all. We're very involved in the legal industry, so those customers don't want to talk at all. But even they are being tempted now through social media to share what's in their heads. And so, I think it's really an exciting time to be in communications now because of new tools that we're using. And it seems that there's a new tool for measurement and understanding your customer every day that comes out. Another advantage of using an agency, you and I should go on Fox News, because we can just duke it out, is that they're finding out stuff that other people are using that you would just never know about because they're heads down trying to run your business.
Yeah.
So I think it's super exciting.
Yeah, I'd say on the measurement on all the tools front, you know, we heard the other day about lots of agencies are building their own tools, which is great. But even the companies that's their business to build these evaluation tools. When we look at a global perspective, there still aren't great tools there to evaluate in multiple markets. So you end up with with a patchwork of different systems, and they all do it in slightly different ways.
Yeah,
Really
that's right.
Duct taping it together.
Yeah.
I mean, from a PR point of view, it's very important for me to gather up coverage from around the world, and we do use a tool to do that, a very expensive tool. But actually, it doesn't give us very accurate results, and therefore the analysis from that tool is not much use to senior management. We're very small in the US. We have quite a small operation, and but if you look at that tool, it looks like we're getting hundreds and hundreds of hits because of the way that you might put press releases out on the wires and that kind of thing. And I keep telling them I need to try and cut those out. To me, when I'm measuring this stuff, that just gives a complete false representation of how we operate around the world. And somehow these tools need to take that into account.
It's a really valid point. I mean, if I look at how much money I spend at the moment on media monitoring and legacy media versus what I can do if I automate that function using, really simple tools like Google.com or in deference to my former employer, Bing.com. I just find I can be so much more effective because the tools that are out there might be very good for some clients and customers, but are not really helping me do what I want to do, particularly for the amount of money that I'm paying for them. I think that's the same issue you've got.
It is, but in a way, there's nothing that completely replaces these tools, and you do need to have a view of all your coverage globally, and it's a difficult thing to do.
You get 100 articles, all of which are syndicated from an AP Newswire story. It just gives you this artificial view.
And the CEO thinks that we generate 250 clippings in Spain every month. And if you look at the PR report and it says direct clippings or something, it says 2, I think.
Cut that bit out.
Well, and there's very real differences that different agencies in different countries, they do.
Well, they
count
monitor it
themselves.
differently, and absolutely. And
but then you get into the whole question on measurement of this. Unfortunately, it still lives and breathes the concept of equivalent advertising value. Now, I mean, I actually see it. If an agency that works for me gives me equivalent ad value, I can guarantee their lifespan is just shortened very considerably. But I don't know what more we have to do in our industry to bury this concept of equivalent ad value. It still lives on, and it's just got to die. Unfortunately, marketing directors seem to believe it. Some CEOs actually believe it. We owe it to our own profession, our own integrity, to kill that beast once and for all.
I agree with that. Other questions that we have? I can't actually see.
Over there. Yep.
This quiet lady over here. You have to hang on, Nico. Even with your voice, Yvonne, Nico.
Hello. Even with my voice, it's not audible. But I just wanted to find out. I know Emma is working on rolling out a blog and already using it in several markets. And I was just wondering, we have the feeling in Europe at least that the blog is working on a sort of revival as a central comms platform. How do the other panelists see that?
I agree with you. We're doing something very similar. There is a member of our team that just left SAP, and they did a blog program with thought leaders, and their just social media numbers went up exponentially because they're actually, instead of talking about themselves, really using content that people want to hear about from people that they already know, not just internal people. And so we're doing the same thing. We're preparing that right now. I think the blog is somehow, I don't know how this has happened, but it's going through some kind of revival where people actually want to read that content. If it's good and if it's from people, from thought leaders that actually people really respect.
And what we're finding is the local marketing teams are really enthusiastic about blogs. It doesn't matter which country it is. The blog seems to work and resonate, and they're getting guest bloggers in, and there might be different ways of managing the content. And coming up with the content is always a challenge, but it does seem to work, globally, which is something we all want.
Yeah, for us, what really matters with blog is the level of experience of the subject matter expert and the level, the quality of the content. So most of our blogs are global because we are very specialized experts in each area.
So you don't have a whole blogging platform and program.
We
just
have,
for France
but it is very open and on personal, willingness to animate blogs. It is not very organized. We prefer to keep it as natural as it could be, but this is also because of the DNA of the company. I mean, we are in product innovation and technology, and
have there been, so then you're just allowing almost anyone within the company to use the voice of the company. Has that ever are there any issues with that come up?
No, we
I
have
imagine a lot of people
rules.
are worried
I mean,
about
it's
that.
not even rules, it's guidelines. So when you have a personal opinion, for example, you need to make clear that it is you talking and not the company. And so you have 6 or 7 things like that. But no, in general, we don't have issues. We add a few, in particular, for example, we have John Knack, which is it's a Photoshop expert known everywhere in the world. And sometimes John had a tendency to deliver information under NDA.
So this person works for the company?
Yes, and he has his
and
own blog that is
really
very, very famous, and he likes to share his opinion. That's why his blog is working. And sometimes to justify some product choices, or he used to give a bit more information that he should have been. So
what did you do?
We had this issue to manage.
So is your blog open for customers as well as internal employees?
Most of the blogs are internal experts, yeah.
We're finding that we actually have more success with external guest bloggers, and so we're starting to use more and more external people as opposed to internal.
Yeah, I think it depends on your business, because we have very strong communities around the brand, and they are looking into contacts within the brand to interact. But I understand this can be different.
Any questions about that? I'm interested in budget. You talked about, because this is the source of power for a lot of people. How do you? So Andrea, you said, okay, the way I am centralizing my global marketing so I can get control of my brand is by owning the budget, and then I get what I want.
Right.
Is
my way or the highway.
Right. And how do you know? But it came from the P&Ls, right? It came from the local, came from the UK or wherever. How did you set that up? And then I'd be interested in what the other panelists do.
I think that the reason why we're able to actually pull in the budget is because we're actually doing that across our marketing organization, pulling in budget centrally. So I think it's an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to coattail onto that. Given the choice, I decided to go along with the rest of the marketing team. So there wasn't a lot of pushback. I think it's, in some ways, a relief to the local, to our local team, because they can get on with it. The budget is incredibly complicated, very time-consuming, lots of currencies, a pain in the neck to manage. So the way I positioned it is like, let me take that off of your plate. You can get on with doing the fun stuff, and we'll pull in kind of not the fun stuff on this end. And so we gave a little something and got a little something.
What about Emma? How are you doing yours in a more mature business, more complex, grown from a number of acquisitions that?
Absolutely. It continues to be a struggle for us, actually. The marketing budgets are held locally, and that's not necessarily the way we would like that to be done. They save a lot of money by making use of the group marketing function to produce materials and to support them in their campaigns. And sometimes we deliver complete campaigns that they just roll out. So they're saving money that way. But because those marketing teams locally are still answerable to the local country managers, there is a fine balance between getting them to do what we want and them doing what they want and maintaining consistency. So that's still something we're working on, and actually I think it's probably going to become more central, and I think the budgets will probably come our way.
Right, so you agree that that's probably the best, that's your ideal solution if you get that. So we have a few minutes left. I want to just ask you all, as people are thinking about, okay, I'm running my global brand in this sort of digital era, what are the sort of final tips or pieces of advice that you give people as they're embarking on these programs at different stages of given your experience at this stage of company that you're at?
I think the most important thing is listening to those local marketing teams and really understanding what their needs are. And where they should be involved. Not everything should be done locally or can be done locally, and they understand the local market. And I think if you can really build a good relationship with them, then that's the way to sustain these marketing programs.
Mm-hmm. I want to see a change in the relationship that the function in-house has with the agencies that support it. I am a big believer in the use of agencies for the right reasons, but I want to see agencies move to a model where when they present their plans to us, that there's far less of a focus on the inputs. In other words, I really don't care whether I'm buying 20 hours or 200 hours. I want to focus on outcomes. I want to focus on agreed objectives, and that we have a cooperative relationship to get there. And then, we settle a price for what we pay based on what the objectives we're all working toward are. Now, some agencies are getting this, and I see that transition is starting, but there are some agencies that still need a bit of a prod, and so consider this a prod, that I'd really like to see much more of a conversation around what the outcomes we're all seeking to achieve are, and work toward that.
On the activities, I agree with that. Andrea, what's your advice?
I think it's about leadership. I think the corporate office is the leader, and so with leadership, you get some power, but you also have great responsibility for the people who work really hard to make their campaign successful around the globe. And so it means taking on some heavy lifting. So that they're freer to use their time to do things that are more productive. It means that your central team is staying up a lot of late nights and a lot of early mornings and leading by example. But I think for us, I think the relationship with our agency, along with the relationship of the global team and really becoming leaders in the corporate office, has been the key to the success of our global program so far.
Wonderful. And Stephanie, what advice do you?
I'm going to say the opposite of what I said previously. My advice would
You're
be
disagreeing with yourself.
keep some space for risk and things you don't measure. Because innovation, creativity, and tomorrow can come from things that you don't have necessarily to measure short term. So we are in the left space area, but we need to keep creativity going to move forward. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of your programs you're measuring, and then you're leaving some other stuff that you're not trying to measure.
Space for things that can fail totally.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Well, listen, I'd just like to thank all of our panelists, Emma, Stephen, Andrea, and Stephanie. You're all running exciting companies and at different stages of their growth and globally. I'd like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much, everyone.
And thank you, Morgan, for your